Anyway, they built all those pyramids December 24, 2188 AD, chapter 48, Waldorf. She got in the elevator with about 1,000 others. The door closed and the conductor said, "This is the express elevator to the floor 40012 where the Messiah brunch and lecture are being held. That is not your destination. Please exit now." A few people squeezed out and the door closed. The elevator began its journey upward. After several minutes, it came to a sudden stop and an alarm bell began to ring. The passengers remained surprisingly calm. The conductor said, "Had a little trouble with some of the elevators. Don't worry, we're almost to the 1217th floor. I'm going to open the door. You'll have to crawl up and then take the next elevator. When you get out on the floor, look to your left. Your elevator to the brunch will be right there," and so it was. Omi hopped up the 3-foot ledge with ease once the door opened. She got on the next elevator with others, and soon the door opened and all passengers filed out into the most beautiful room she had ever seen. It was now almost 3 p.m., but she got into the brunch line, took a tray, and filled it with plate after plate. Waldorf salad, jalapeno roll, shrimp cocktail, fettuccine alfredo, blue cheese crusted filet, potatoes au gratin, and mango cheesecake made her eyes and stomach light up like the sun. She looked for a place to sit and found an empty table at the far end of the room next to the window. She sat down and dove into her salad. She realized after one bite that this place must be the real heaven. Within a couple of minutes, a European-looking couple came up and asked to join her. She motioned for them to sit. They introduced themselves as General and Mrs. Brockman. The two sat down, the General to her left and Mrs. to her right. "Hi, I'm Romy," she said, shaking each of their hands. The three began to eat heartily. The General removed his hat, replete with swastika, and set it on the table next to Romy. Mrs. Brockman, Shalene, had on a black wristband and did not remove it. "So what brings you to the brunch?" Shalene asked. "Oh, I wanted to hear this Alexander fellow for a long time. I want to hear what he has to say," Romy said. "You'll like him, won't you, dear?" Shalene said, staring at her husband. He nodded, his mouth full of salad. "I hope so," Romy said. "What room are you in, hon? I haven't seen you before," Shalene said. "Oh, I'm just a visitor. I'm from Rio de Janeiro," she said. "Really?" Shalene said, twisting her fork in the fettuccine. "We are from Buenos Aires. He moved there during the war, and we met soon after the war ended." "And the rest is history," Romy said. "Right," Shalene said, a big smile on her pasta-stained face. "You have family?" the General asked. "No, my husband died and the kids moved to New York." She lied and wasn't sure why. "Too bad, too bad. Well, why don't you move in here? It's so wonderful." And when Alexander calls himself Allah now because he is, well, when he wins the war over that awful Jerusalem and all those cheats and liars, well, then we'll all go to the new earth out yonder. She pointed out the window at the cloudless, clear blue sky. As Shalene was talking, Romy felt something slide up and down her right calf. As Shalene, a dark-complected, well-built woman of obviously Latin descent, chatted on, Romy realized that something was the stocking foot of Shalene. It continued to move up and down her lower leg. Shalene could not bring herself to draw her own right leg away. Romy could not bring herself to draw her own right leg away. Instead, she kept smiling and eating and listening to Shalene talk away. "You know, my husband was a 3-star general in Hitler's glorious Germany. Isn't that right, honey?" Shalene said. "Yes, I was," the tall, blond, blue-eyed General Brockman said. "I met him in Brazil, Rio, actually. He was lucky enough to escape, and honey, what's your name?" "Romy," Romy said. "Yes, Romy. Pretty name. It was love at first sight. Just look at him. Even at 70, he's so handsome and in bed. Well," she held up her hand, making a circle with thumb and index finger. "You know what I mean. Isn't that right, lover?" she said, increasing the frequency of her foot moving up and down Romy's leg. Again, Romy could not bring herself to pull away. In fact, she leaned closer to her new friend and said, "Is it true about the Nazi camps?" Without missing a beat, Shalene said, "No, honey, those are all Allied lies. When the Allies pressed the poor German army, there was no food to feed anyone but the soldiers. Jews and Germans alike died by the thousands, no, the millions, starvation. They all had to be cremated or the plague would have destroyed the entire country, just like in the Dark Ages, you know. Never heard that, Romy said. Isn't that right, honey? Shalene said, looking to her husband for confirmation. Yes, my sweet, he said as he spoke. He put his right hand on Romy's left thigh. It is so interesting, Romy said. The hand was still there when where the general had placed it. And so true, he said, a handsome smile on his face. Romy took one bite of her luscious cheesecake, then said, I'm so full I can't eat another bite. She rubbed her tummy for effect. Me too. You about done, dear? Shalene asked her husband. The general nodded as he took one last bite of the mango cheesecake, simultaneously easing his hand higher on Romy's thigh. Well, I'm going to see how my two girlfriends are faring, Shalene said. You two go to the meeting, and then you and he can go up to our suite for a nightcap. He likes to be called Liebchen, Shalene said, squeezing Romy's thigh. I'll catch up with you later. With that, she was off. Romy and General Brockman turned and looked into one another's eyes. His right hand moved from her thigh to her left hand. He grasped it firmly. The two rose together and walked slowly toward the meeting area off in the distance.